All right, so I'm Gregory Bennett, and so I've been investing for a long time. I'm not as old as Joseph, so I haven't been investing as long as he has.
That's a gray head here. He shaved his head off. Yeah. He's hiding his gray hair.
But Joseph and I we've known each other for a long time. He speaks for me whenever asked, and it seems like 20 years. I would say 20 years. It could be a little longer. And so I wanted to talk about Section 8 rentals because I personally see it as a gold mine. It's a gold mine for us. When we're building wealth, we build wealth through buy and hold properties. And basically for two reasons: for equity and appreciation. So we buy a property and we hope that we buy it in the right area where it's going to appreciate, so that years to come, we're building wealth through the equity in the property. Now, alongside of that is the cash flow that comes with it. One of the challenges with the cash flow is getting the right tenant to pay for your house or pay your mortgage. And what we find with voucher holders of Section 8 is the county or the city actually pays your mortgage through the Section 8 tenant. And so for me, it's been a gold mine. And the key to it is that having the right tenant that's going to stay there for as long as possible. When we're buying and holding properties, one of the downsides of a buy and hold property is when the tenant moves out. And so now when the tenant moves out, we have to now spend money on fixing the property up. We've got to pay the mortgage ourselves. And so with Section 8, we do everything we can to keep them in I've had tenants in longer than 10 years. Joseph has had tenants in his properties longer than 20 years. And so that's kind of why we wanted to talk about this and bring this information. If you guys can have the right property, the right area that's appreciating the value and getting a voucher holder to pay that mortgage for you, that one property. I basically sent my daughter, wherever she is, to college on one property. And so, Joseph, why don't you just introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about why Section 8.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Asamoah. Some people call me Dr. Joe. You may hear a little accent. I was born in Ghana, but I lived in England, and I came to the US about 37 years ago. And I bought my first house 2 years after that in, I don't know if you know, DC area, Columbia Heights. And when I bought this house for $47,000, okay, people were telling me I was paying too much. I was getting ripped off. I was getting duped. Okay, $47,000. Anyway, I bought that house. It was a complete disaster. I didn't know what I was doing. But to tell a long story short, that house is now worth obviously a lot more than that. And the rent, the mortgage is zero, and the rent is $4,700. The point of that is not so much to brag or anything, because that's not necessary. The important thing is that, as Greg was saying, over time, especially in the DMV area, real estate tends to appreciate in value. I don't think we can debate. I don't think there's no need to debate that. We all get that. Okay. The issue is how you keep this property for that period of time without going crazy. And the key is having a good tenant. Okay, because you can have all these great ideas about Greg is saying his daughter's sent off to college and retirement and so that's all great. But I don't know if you've had a bad tenant before. A tenant doesn't want to pay you. A tenant that destroys your house. If you get one of those folks, all you want to do is just get rid of the house because the tenants are going crazy. So what I realized is that the key to this is to have quality tenants. And I'll talk about that later on, how you get those. Quality tenants who are going to take care of your property, pleasant to deal with, no drama, and and pay the rent and take care of your property. I mean, that's what we want. And if you can find that person. I call them tier 1 tenants. If you can find these people, then buy and hold landlording, it becomes a joy. It becomes a blessing. And that's the thing which I realized, that if I can sort of figure out how to get quality tier 1 tenants, then I can scale this thing. I can have multiple properties. I don't get sort of razzled and dazzled every day and so forth. So that's essentially my story. I kind of latched onto Section 8. And I know all the stereotypes you get with the program, you know, mayhem, confusion, drama, you got to collect your rent with a bulletproof vest, and you get shot at. You know? I mean, I hear all those stereotypes. That may be true, but not for me. But there are some really, really good families in that program who are, at the end of the day, are no different than you and I. They want the same thing. They just want a nice house in a nice area and rent for a good landlord. If you're one of those, then you can attract those kind of tenants, and they stay a long time. My longest tenant is 25 years, and on a 15-year mortgage, okay? And I have regular 20-year tenants, 15-year tenants. These folks stay a long time, okay? If you can have the right house and you can attract the right tenant. Okay, that's a high level. We can drill down later on, during the discussions.
Let's drill down just a little bit. And when you talk about the right tenant, the key is to keeping them in there for as long as possible. And so what are some of the things you do to keep that tenant in that property for as long as possible?
Okay, so what I do, okay, here's what it is. Let's role play here. Greg is another landlord, okay, and I'm a landlord.
I want to be your landlord. I know where he's going with it, but I'll play the game. Okay. I'm another bad landlord.
No. I didn't say that. Okay, young lady, what's your name? Charlotte. Okay, so Charlotte is a tenant, okay, and she's looking for a property to rent with her family. Okay, everybody get me so far? And I advertise, Greg advertised, okay? So Charlene is a tier 1 tenant. What I mean by that, Charlene is the kind of tenant that I want to rent to, and that Greg also wants to rent to. Everybody follow me? She's the kind of tenant who pays her rent, takes care of the property, pleasant to deal with, and is looking to stay a long time. Okay, she's not like, let me pick a Gary. Gary, right, over there, he's a tenant who just got evicted yesterday. He trashed his house. He's a deadbeat. Okay, I don't want Gary. Maybe Greg does. I want this young lady. Everybody follow me so far? So she has choices, okay? Gary probably doesn't, because he's going to pick whoever gets him, but she has choices. So the question becomes, why should Charlene, why should Charlene pick me over Greg? I mean, that's the bottom line, okay? For me, I'm in competition, whether I like her or not, with Greg to attract Charlene. Okay, so I go in this thing with that mindset, is that I have to do something to differentiate me from Greg. Because if I don't, then Charlene is going to go after Greg, okay? So obviously, certain things which I do, first of all, is the location. Because the neighborhood trumps everything usually. She's looking for a certain type of neighborhood, and therefore I try to buy a neighborhood which I can attract Charlene. That's number one. Number two is I try to have a decent property which is also attractive to Charlene. But I also tell Charlene that, Charlene, my goal is to be the best landlord you've ever had in the world. Okay, I'm the best landlord in the world. He's not going to say that. And I'll explain why I do that. But essentially what I do is I screen well to appeal to Charlene. And when she's in the house, I make sure that she doesn't leave. So every Mother's Day, I'm giving her bouquets of flowers. Wow. Okay. Every Christmas, I'm giving her and her family a Christmas present. Okay. If the kids do well at school, I'm giving them a $50 gift certificate. Okay. They show me the report card. Okay. Not a repeat photocopy, but a real one. And we have a timeshare in Massanutten, a couple of hours from here. So all my tenants get free vacations.
Right.
So you follow what I'm here? You see where it's going here? I want her okay, I have to differentiate myself from Greg. Even though Greg is a good landlord, okay, I'm selling me and my property and my whole philosophy to her, okay? And therefore, so part one is to attract Charlene, and part two is when she's in, make sure she stays. Because as Greg said earlier on, it's the turnover. When she leaves, it's so expensive. You're gonna have to paint the place again, you gotta clean it again, you gotta advertise again, there's no rent coming in. It's very, very expensive. So a turnover typically runs anywhere from 2 to 3 months after all is said and done. So if your rent is $3,000, for example, every time she leaves, or if the tenant leaves, it's gonna cost you between $6,000 and $9,000 after all is said and done. Okay, so all your cash flow that you worked for the last few months gets wiped out. And that's when I realized that I had to figure a way to minimize turnover, which is doing these things which I talked about. But also I figured out that the Section 8 tenants tend to stay longer than market renters. Does that answer the question?
You have a question, sir?
Yes, you were talking about attracting Charlie. I want to know all those sort of benefits that you talk about that you would try to give to Charlie tenants. Would you have made that known by Charlie coming in?
Do you attract with those that you feel?
Right, because you're trying to attract her. But would you have made that known to her before she signed on?
You know, what I tell Charlene, because Charlene, most families are looking for stability. They're looking for a place where once they're in, okay? And they don't like moving around. Nobody likes moving around, okay? And so I tell Charlene that I have tenants that stay 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, okay? That's music to her ears, okay? Because if you're a voucher holder, you're gonna have to believe me here. A lot of landlords in the program aren't the greatest landlords, let's put it that way. Oh, well, I'll leave it at that. And so what happens is that a lot of these families like Charlene are tired of that. They're just looking for a good landlord. They're just looking for one, okay? Because they're tired of the slumlord, they're tired of the kids. I tell you, I got lots of stories. One story, one of the tenants I just rented to about a couple of years ago, her biggest concern, as part of my screening process, I go to the people's homes to see how they keep their homes, okay? And so I went to this lady's home. She lives in Congress Heights in Southeast, pretty the tough part of Congress Heights. There's some good parts of Congress Heights. This one's kind of the tough part. And she said to me, "Don't judge me by what's outside my house, because I can't control that. Judge me by what's inside my house, because I can control that." And her house is immaculate, spotless, okay? And she said the biggest concern she has every day, is her kids are getting killed on the way home from school. That is her top concern. You may be concerned about is your Starbucks coffee too cold or too hot. She's worried about her kids getting killed, okay? And so, I say that because they want looking for somebody to give them a chance. Okay, because we have all these stereotypes of voucher holders, but they're not like that. They're looking for somebody to give them a chance. So if you give Charlene a chance, for the most part, she's probably going to reciprocate. And I'll say this one thing. Another tenant of mine, I got so many tenant stories. Okay, I spoke to her about 6 months ago. She said, by living in one of my houses, her kids. 2 of her kids have got a full ride to go to college. Okay? Full ride to go to college because they live in a better house, in a better neighborhood, better neighbors, better schools. Okay? So yes, we make money, but also we can make a huge difference in people's lives. A huge difference. And that's why I enjoy, that's what I love about all this.
How often is your interaction with your tenants? Like I know you said the Christmas or report cards. What is too much interaction with tenants when you may be overdoing in terms of contacting them and checking on them?
Sure. Yeah, it's a business. So, what's it called? A lot, I know this is kind of contrary to what people say. If I don't hear from my tenants usually every 3 to 4 months, we just check in to make sure they're okay. Okay. Most landlords, as long as they don't see the tenants, they don't want to see the tenants, they don't want to hear from them, all they want is their money. That's it. Okay. Keep it simple. Just pay the money, and the less I see you, hear from you, the better. what I realized is that if you engage with them, just check in. Hey, how is it? Make sure everything's okay. That you sort of build that bond, that trust. And if you don't check in, then what's going to happen is the first time you hear from them is when they give you a 30-day notice. Okay? It's too late. They're moving on. Okay? Whereas if you check in, you can be proactive. Oh, so-and-so is, you can say, they can tell you, well, I'm not happy about this. I'm not happy about that. And therefore, they can kind of give you a heads up. And therefore, you can address the issue before it gets to the point whereby they give you a 30-day notice. So the pros and cons of checking in, but I like to check in every now and then.
So you guys have to look at each house as its own separate business. And so you got to nurture that business and take care of that business. Because the byproduct of you doing a good job as being a landlord, they stay in the property, and Section 8, the county or the city, they're paying off your mortgage. And that's what it's all about for you. Derek, do you have a question?
You had mentioned that because of the better neighborhood, your tenant was incentivized by their child being able to go to college. So I was wondering what way, let's say someone like Charlene, I'm not Charlene.
Yeah.
Charlene.
The woman from Congress Park, how was she incentivized? Because that, as you said, was a not so sought after.
Well, one thing that, and we'll get into this, one thing that Joseph does is now in his career, he only buys in areas like upper Northwest DC. And we can ask him why he does that.
Hey, I don't want to give it pressure, Cal.
He didn't start off that way.
Okay, that's where he started.
But no, he started off in Temple Hills, and but now he only buys there. So his point was, since he's buying, he evolved there. I'm speaking for him like he's not here. He evolved to get there, but his point was, since he is in better neighborhoods, there are better schools, that kind of thing. And so I think the point is, though, is to get started,
Yes.
to buy where you can buy.
Yes.
And do the best that you can.
Yes.
The tenant is not your enemy. The tenant is your friend. You treat them very, very well. When my tenant calls me, I rush over there. I want to fix everything because I don't want turnover. Turnover, like Joseph said, is going to cost you like $9,000. I want to keep them in there as long as possible. I've got a tenant in Annapolis that they're happy. They've been in the property almost 10 years. I was able to almost pay the property off, refinanced probably about 3 months ago, and pull some cash out. Just kind of playing that real estate game. But, they just love being there. And I love having them there. And so that's the kind of attitude that you have to have. What I see is a lot of landlords have a very adversarial relationship with the tenant. It shouldn't be that way because it's a business. You want them to take care of that business so that you can help them out in their lives. We want to help Charlene out, but then we want Charlene through the government to help us out as well. In the back?
Yeah, my name is Derek.
Can I just add one more thing to that? As Greg said, I evolved over time. You start where you can. That's the bottom line, okay? If you can only afford, let's say, A, B, C, D, D neighborhoods, then that's what it is. There are people that are happy to live there. There are people living there. There are the Charlenes of those neighborhoods. They're there, okay? Your issue is to find the Charlenes of that neighborhood, okay? Because there are people there, okay? Everybody doesn't want it. Everybody cannot live in a neighborhood, but they just want to be in a decent area wherever they are and not worry about their kids getting shot at, not worried about the slum law, not worried. I mean, they just want everything that we all want. I'm sorry.
Sure. Speaking of relationships, when you're dealing with whether district or Baltimore, what are some of the common obstacles or mistakes should an investor look for in terms of the process, paperwork, getting back to whoever is working in the office that day? what is it that, investors should focus on to maybe avoid obstacles they should, look forward to having to deal with when you're dealing with the city or the county that you're investing in?
Okay, good question. A lot of the Section 8, technically it's called a Housing Choice Voucher Program, technically. And so it's administered by the Housing Authority in Baltimore, in Prince George's County, Washington, D.C., whatever it is. Okay, so there's these housing authorities. And like every bureaucracy, which the housing authorities are, your key to your success, the bottom line in any bureaucracy, are relationships. If you know people within the organization, usually you can get things done more faster than if you don't know anybody. I mean, everyone get that? So the issue is, how do you establish those relationships? Because if you have those relationships, if you get to know these folks, then if you have a problem, you can usually call somebody who can then sort of give you, well, you need to speak to this person, you need to speak to that person. So to answer your question, the key to one of the keys in it, based on my experience, are establishing and nurturing relationships with these different housing authorities. So they usually have meetings, sometimes once a month, sometimes once a quarter, whatever it is. If you can try to attend those meetings, if you can sort of, call the customer service and try to find out when are these meetings going to occur. Are there people there who you can, like a landlord liaison, that you can speak out to, reach out to, and things like that. Sort of nurture those kind of insider information there. If you can do that, it's a lot better. It's not going to solve all your problems, but it definitely helps.
And I think one of the issues is in terms of renovating the properties. And so you've got to renovate the property to a certain standard, because you've got to know, number one, that Section 8 is going to come in and inspect. That's part of the process. They're going to require a lead-based paint test, and so it's got to be either lead-free or what they call lead-safe. And so you got to go through that process, and then depending on where the property is, and how many bedrooms will determine how much of a voucher they're going to approve for your property. But that's all part of the process. Before the tenant even moves in, you've got to go through an inspection, not termite, but a lead test. Those things have to be done.
Yeah, they normally give you most housing authorities give you a checklist of things that they look for. So therefore, prior to the inspector, for example, coming over to the house, you want to go through that checklist to make sure that your house is going to pass. That way you don't waste your time, you don't waste their time, and and so on. But a lot of that information, again, is out there. It's just a matter of you taking the time to understand it and sort of pre-checking your property beforehand.
And one other thing I want to mention is when renovating the properties. Now, in our coaching program, we have platinum coaching program. I'll let Keith speak in a few minutes. I want you guys really focusing on putting out a good product, not necessarily cutting corners. And so in my properties, I put stainless steel appliances in mine. It's a low-grade stainless steel, but I put that in. I put granite countertops, low-grade granite, but I do that. I put in LVP luxury vinyl plank. I don't put carpet in my properties anymore. I try to put together a product that I would feel comfortable living in, but Charlene would feel comfortable living in for the next 20 years. And I want to put in the type of materials that will last for 20 years. I don't want to have to, I don't want Charlene calling me in 5 years and saying that I need to put in new countertops, where I know I have a stone in there. And so it's going to be a lot cheaper for me to put in, Dana, you paying attention? It's going to be a lot cheaper for me now to put in the good materials versus cheaper materials where I'm going to have to come in and change those materials in the next couple of years. You guys with me? Now, listen to what I just said. Now let's hear what type of quality that Joseph puts in his.
No,
Do we have, is the PowerPoint gonna work?
Yes,
Can you turn it on real quick?
Here.
Huh? Can we show a couple of his properties?
Just, are you by Kitten Street or something like that?
I've got some.
So look, so this is sort of one of his properties. Can everybody see it?
Can you move the secondary?
This one? Go ahead, Stephanie. So I just wanted to show really quickly kind of the quality. This is one of his properties, before on this side, after on the other side.
I think that's the last one.
Is that it?
There's a house before that.
Oh, there's one more?
There was a house before, I think you missed that one.
Okay.
Well, maybe you didn't.
So Joseph, why do you, the quality of your renovations, the finishes,
Right.
why such great finishes even on your Section 8 rentals?
Because I'm appealing to Charlene's of this world, and Charlene's, if she was to walk into my home, this is a dream come true, and this is something whereby she can say, yes, at last, I'm happy here. I want this house. And so step one is to have a good product, and therefore I get lots of applications.
Hey.
Okay? If I get a lot of applications, then I can sort of have more to choose from. Okay? So therefore, the last one I did, we had 16 applications on the house. Okay? So you've got 16 people vying for this one house. So I can raise the bar in terms of the screening standards. Okay, I can say to Charlene, look, Charlene, this is, if you want this house, because I'm the world's greatest landlord, and you're the world's greatest tenant, I'm going to contact your current landlord, your previous landlord. I'm going to check your income, credit. I'm also going to go see your home. Okay? Now, Charlene is not intimidated by that. She said, you want to come to my house? I keep my house just like this. Let's go. Okay, you want to call my landlord? No problem. He'll tell you I'm the world's. I mean, she's not intimidated by this. Okay. Now, if I only had one applicant, the Gary. Okay. Okay.
Poor Gary. Gary said, I retired, I ain't hiring nobody.
That's not Gary. I just missed it. What's he called? And what, today, the 4th? So let's say it was October 31st, my mortgage is due tomorrow. My bank account's low, I need money, okay? So if somebody walks in who may not be the world, the right fit, but just because I'm short of money, I may have to lower my standard just to get the place rented. You follow me? And that's the problem when you have few applications. And you tend to get more applications if you have a better product in a better area and so on. And therefore you can sort of be a lot more thorough in your screening to appeal and attract people like the Charlene's of the world who are likely to stay a long time. So that's the reason why I do some of these. I didn't always start off here, but I kind of evolved through here. And you don't have to do all this thing, but this is where I am because I know that I'm in competition to attract the Charlene's of this world.
Bring it back.
Yes, in terms of community involvement, do you find it necessary to establish a relationship with long-term homeowners because of the stigma of Section 8, or do you just deal directly with your tenants and, whichever situation?
Yeah, once I select a Charlene, for example, I usually, send a letter to both the neighbors just to introduce myself. If I haven't done that already, I just let them know that I've got a new tenant, and I've been very thorough on the screening. However, if there's any questions or issues, this is my number. You can call me, and so on. So I want, again, I explained to Charlene, it's really important that she's a part of the community. She's a good citizen of the neighborhood, because just as much as I'm trying to do the right thing, I want to make sure my tenants also do the right thing, such that they don't sort of get the ire of the neighbors, because the neighbors didn't buy into my They don't care that I want financial independence. They bought their house, live in a nice area, in a nice community. They don't care about me. And therefore, it's important that my tenant understands that and be a good asset to the community as well.
Okay, can I address really quickly the myth or the stigma of Section 8? Many years ago, when I started renting out Section 8 20 years ago, there was a myth. And the reason why there was a myth, because the reality was a lot of the Section 8 tenants didn't take care of the property. Now, I would say that primarily because they were bad landlords. There were landlords that would just rent them out and not talk to the tenant for a year. You've got to check on your property. But I haven't had a bad experience, I'll say, in probably 15 years. Reason for that is, number one, Section 8 has totally changed the program where now they come out at least once a year and they inspect the property. They will tell the landlord some of the things that they need to do, and then they will tell the tenant some things that the tenant needs to do in order to stay into the program. Now, in most jurisdictions, there's a big, I think in Baltimore, there's like a 5-year waiting list to get on Section 8. And so the tenants know how difficult it is, not just to get on the list, but to stay in the program. And so they're going to do everything they can to take care of the property. They know that Section 8 is coming out once a year. You should be coming out, every 3 or 4 times a year. They know that if they get taken out of the program, it could be another 5 years. Number one concern that we all have is shelter. And so the Section 8 program provides that shelter, for Charlene. And so I personally haven't seen what Valerie would call myths for the Section 8 program. They do take care of the property, but you do have to manage them. Sometimes even micromanage them, but you do have to micromanage the tenants. Now, there's 2 types of voucher holders, in my opinion. There's full voucher holders and partial voucher holders. Partial voucher holder means that they're going to pay some percentage of the rent. Full voucher holder simply means that the county or the city is going to pay 100% of that voucher. Now, I generally lean towards a full voucher holder. I will tell you that most of my tenants who are partial voucher holders, I will tell you that they don't always pay on time. Their portion. They pay, but not on time. And so I always lean towards full voucher holders when I can. And I would suggest that also. And then the key, one thing that I want you guys to walk away with is, we've said this a number of times, but you want to get that voucher, not necessarily that voucher holder, but the county or the city to pay your mortgage off for you. So what does that mean? It just means that you've got to do your job. You've got to take care of that property. You've got to be a good landlord. You've got, when your tenant calls, you rush over there. Tenant called me on one of my properties in Baltimore. Not only did I rush over there, I rushed over there with a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts. I want to make sure that the tenant's happy because I want Baltimore City to pay off that mortgage for me. Okay, so I can use that property for my retirement, and then my daughter can use it for hers as well. And so I've got to do a good job taking care of that property, taking care of the tenant. And if I play my role, the city's going to play their role. During the pandemic, we didn't worry about anything. The pandemic started. First of the month, guess what happened? First of every month. Looked in the bank account, guess what was there? Money, direct deposit, bam, like clockwork. There was tenants there was landlords that was suffering who had market rate tenants. Couldn't do anything about it. Couldn't evict them, couldn't do anything. Section 8 landlords in the account, first of the month, like clockwork. And so that's why I say Section 8 is like a gold mine. It's like they created the program for me personally, not for Joseph, but for me. And I'm just
program is 75 years old. So.
Go ahead, Valerie.
Can I just add one thing to that? The other thing I want to add to what Greg is saying, there are bad tenants out there. Okay, they're not all halos. You know, they're all bad tenants, and your job is to identify and screen. That's your job. If you don't screen or don't screen well, you may get a bad tenant, and then all the nonsense that you talk about is true. Okay, you're gonna have the drama, you're gonna have the headaches, you're gonna have the mayhem. You will. I mean, there are people out there that's their life. It's just mayhem and chaos and confusion, and they'll just come into your house and bring that to you. Okay, so your job is to screen such that you can sort of differentiate the diamonds in the rough, the good from the bad or whatever. That's your job, and that's the other thing I want to add to that is that people have lied to me, okay, about their histories. They've said, okay, this lady came to my house, okay, and said to me, "I love this house. I had a dream from God." Okay. God told me, is it okay if I go to the corner and pray? Okay, so that hopefully God will allow me to come into your home. Okay, I mean, this lady was good. I mean, what do you do when someone tells you that?
You gotta go with it.
God
When
told you.
they bring God into the conversation, you gotta go with it.
Yeah, you can't say I don't believe in God. Yeah, God lied. You can't say that. You gotta. I mean, people say what you want to hear, and they'll put all kinds of stories in there. I mean, I've seen it all. People have lied about their landlords. They've said that my landlord is this lady here, when in fact it's this lady. People. I mean, it's out there. You got these professional tenants, okay, who know how to play the system, and they know the system better than you. Okay, they know that once they get in the house, you can't get them out. Okay, so they'll say what you want to hear, such that to get them in. Okay, and so that's not to frighten you or anything like that. It's just that's the way it is. Okay, and the key to your success, 80%, I would say 80 to 95%, all the problems you're going to have as a landlord, the root of it is bad screening. Okay, getting the wrong person in your house. Okay,
Which means you gotta take your time to screen.
you got to take your time.
Don't rush.
Yes.
Don't rush through it.
Do you guys have a radius of how far out to go for your investment properties, like you doing in the southern states and areas?
I don't. For me, and I'll let Joseph has a really good answer, but for me, this area, the DMV, is like a hotbed, and we're blessed to be here. There's no better place in the United States than here for rentals. Baltimore is the #1 residential rental in the United States. I'll let Joseph talk about DC being the capital city and what that means. But there's not a better place, at least for me, than here. There's tons of homeowners, more African-American homeowners. And then here, in Baltimore, 40% of the workforce rent. And so Baltimore is really good. If you want to start off there, in terms of buying rentals, in terms of appreciation, DC is the best because it's the capital city. Just talk to us about capital cities and why they make such good places for investment properties.
Yeah, well, having done quite a bit of travel around the world, I used to live in London. So one thing I realized is that there's something unique about capital cities and capital regions, especially capital cities. First of all, there's only one. There's only one in every country. And that's #1. #2 is that's where the money is. Whenever you think of a country, if I say England, you're probably going to say London. If I say France, you're probably going to say Paris. If I say Afghanistan, you're probably going to say Kabul. You always think of the capital city, okay, of every country. That's #1. That's where the money is. That's where the seat of power is. That's where the jobs are. The economy is a lot more resilient. when the rest of the country goes downhill, the capital area usually, tends to be a bit more stable. And if you can own real estate in capitals, usually over time, it tends to appreciate in value. And that's where, to me, is the key, is the appreciation. It's good to get cash flow, I'm not saying that, but appreciation is how you build your real money. And if you can buy something today and hold on to it for a while, if you're going to go through the hassles and heartaches of renting, you want a payday at the end of the day, in my opinion. And the payday is the appreciation. And not all areas appreciate the same. They don't. So that's the reason why I'm kind of attracted to, first of all, this area, the capital area, and then specifically in Washington, D.C., because, it is what it is. And but then you're going to say, well, it's too expensive to start in Washington, D.C., and so on. But that's okay. You start somewhere. But the other thing which I think I missed out is that the rents that you get in Section 8 is based on two things, and two things only. It's based on the location of the property, which is either the zip code if you're in Prince George's County, or in Washington, it's based on the neighborhoods. Okay, so that's number one. And number two is the number of bedrooms. Okay, so if you want to get more rent, then you look at how they are paying the rents, and it's all published information. So it could be based on the zip code, and then also if you can add more bedrooms, then you get more rent. So the ones that I've showed you here, one of them, the one in North, well, both in Northeast, one's in Eckington. So that was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, and we turned that into a 5-bedroom house. Okay, so and then you're gonna say, well, how do you get 2 extra bedrooms? It had a basement that was not being used, so we created 2 bedrooms in the basement to get the 3 to a 5. Follow me? So now, if Greg bought that house as a 3-bedroom, he would have got 1 rent. If Charlene bought the same house and added another bedroom, she would have got a 2nd rent, higher. You follow me? But I turned it into a 5-bedroom, so I got even higher. And therefore, I turned an asset that was negative cash flow into something that's positive cash flow. Does that make sense? And so that's how you're able to sort of work the Section 8 system in certain areas, whereby if you have some flexibility, you can increase the number of bedrooms in order to get more rent.
And so that's one of your strategies that I've noticed over the years. And so you have probably a minimum, you don't do like 3 bedrooms at all, right? You have like a minimum, is it a minimum of 4 or a minimum of 5?
Yeah, when I first started, you could cash flow, because Washington was relatively cheaper, you could cash flow, or even Prince George's County, you could cash flow with 3 bedrooms. So I was buying 3-bedroom houses, then prices got up, and the rents for 3 bedrooms didn't cover. So I have to go to a 4-bedroom in order to get cash flow, and then price again. So I'm now into 5 bedrooms. The other house there was a 6-bedroom. It was a 2-bedroom house. We turned it into a 6-bedroom house. Yeah,
No, those are row houses. So it's about being able to look at a property, even if it's a row house, and then trying to figure out how can I get more bedrooms in this house?
Yes.
Because with more bedrooms come what? More money, more revenue. Erica?
As far as the, taking the 3-bedroom, making it circle into 5, is Section 8 strict with the rules that it has to have a closet and a bedroom?
Egress window. Yeah, it's got to be a legal bedroom.
Yes.
It has to be.
Yes, you can't just put a closet in your house and say this is the bedroom now. It's got to go through legal requirements.
Okay.
Valerie?
I have 2 questions. How challenging is it to become a Section 8 landlord, as well as being able to utilize the full voucher program versus partial?
So you make the determination whether the house that you own that you want to rent to a Section 8 tenant. So you make that determination. And then what was the second part?
The second part is is it challenging to get on the full voucher program versus the partial?
No.
Voucher?
And as far as the tenant's concerned,
As far
as the tenant concerned, it just depends on their income. Depends on their income. And then if your house is really nice and you put it on the market at Section 8, sometimes even in the MLS or on one of the Section 8 sites, and you get a lot of voucher holders kind of vying for your property. Now you can determine what type of voucher holder I want. And so, let's say I get 2 voucher holders that are partial, 2 that are full. I'm going to lean towards the full vouchers, but also I'm going to do my due diligence. I'm going to do my background check, credit, go look at their past, talk to the landlord, do my due diligence. So you just got to go through that process.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a Section 8 landlord. Okay, listen. What it is that Charlene has a voucher. She applies to my house. If I accept her, then she provides documentation which kicks off the Section 8 process. Okay, so I'm a landlord. I can rent to Charlene or anybody else here, but I've decided to rent to her, and she just happens to have a voucher. Okay, and therefore that kicks off the process for the Section 8. If she didn't have a voucher, then I wouldn't have to deal with that. I'm still a landlord. It just so happens that I'm renting to a tenant who has a voucher. That's the only difference.
Greg, I think you answered part of my question about the Section 8 website. My question was, how do tenants become aware of your property as far as the how it looks and characteristics?
So the question is, how does Section 8 tenants, how do they become aware of my property? So there's a number of ways. One of the ways that I personally use are tenant placement companies. And so I have a tenant placement person in Baltimore. If you guys text me, I'll give you her information. That's all she does as a full-time job, is she places tenants in your properties. You can put your property down at Section 8 and they'll market it for you. They will put it on their website. You can put your property in some realtors will have Section 8 tenants as clients. And so you can put it in the MLS. So there's a number of different ways to market your properties. And one good thing about Section 8 is they will market your property for you.
I want to add to that, if that's okay. I say on my ads, I have nice ads, nice photographs and things like that. I put on there Section 8 welcome. Okay, welcome. Okay, so I let Charlene's of this world know that I'm open to her voucher. And I advertise in places where the Charlene's are likely to look. And and so on. So I call the housing authority to find out where do they send their voucher holders to look for properties. Once I understand where that is, I make sure I place my ads there as well. In addition, I've had a lot of success with Zillow, and there was a time Craigslist used to be pretty good, but I don't get a whole lot of success there anymore. But I make sure that I advertise in places where voucher holders are likely to look, and I also place in there welcome.
I have 2 questions. That tenant placement, what kind of costs is associated with it?
So tenant placement, I believe she charges first month's rent.
Okay. The second question is, when you have a 100% covered tenant, where Section 8 is paying the full amount, can't that change over time? Can that change according to what's going on with that tenant?
It can change. I haven't seen it, but it can change.
Oh, so that's not a common thing for it to change?
No.
Usually when they get fully covered, they're fully covered?
Yeah, they're fully covered. Maybe it's a medical issue. They got 4 children. They're unable to work. That kind of thing. It's not like a veterans program where they're trying to wean them off the program, or battered women's program where they started them off at maybe 100%, and over a period of time they try to wean them off the program. Section 8 is not like that.
You had mentioned that, is there any conflict of interest if you were to try to incentivize a tenant that you don't want, a tenant you don't want anymore? You know, if you're flipping a property, you might want to incentivize to get that person out of there. Is there any conflict of interest with the voucher program if you were to try to get a tenant you don't want there anymore by offering to help them move? You know what I'm talking about, you talk about it all the time.
So keep in mind that that tenant is signing a lease with you, which is a legal binding contract. And so you can't get them out. Now you can give them a 30-day notice when their lease is getting ready to expire to get them out.
So it's just the same as the.
Yeah.
So-
But we'll go right here.
It sounded like it is so much better to have the Section 8 program paid. Why can't you tell a tenant to pay Section 8 and the Section 8 pays you, so that if there are any problems, the Section 8 office takes care of it?
So we're just landlords. We're not rewriting the laws of Section 8. And so we can't tell Section 8 how to change the program.
So
It would take an act of Congress. So you might want to talk to your local congressperson. I'm just joking.
I'm just trying to understand this, that if they're partial, then they're paying you, and you've got no.
So Section 8 is just a government agency, governed by housing, just to administer the program. They're not handling
The way it works is that
the money or anything like that.
Yeah, the agreement, the lease is between Charlie and I, okay? She is bound by the terms of the lease. Section 8 is saying to me, we are going to contribute a portion of the rent, okay, as assistance, okay? So, so that's how it works. So if something goes wrong, she's still legally bound. If she fails to qualify or certify, or she gets kicked off the program, okay, she is now responsible for the entire rent. Okay, and that's the incentive for her, is to make sure she doesn't get kicked off the program, because if she gets kicked off the program, she can't afford to pay the entire rent. Okay, so that's the leverage that the program has with her. But yes, Section 8 agrees to pay me or assist her with a portion of her rent, and they direct the payment to me, and whatever's left over, I have to collect from her.
And that is based on your decision, based on the market rate.
No, it's based
What
on
you're saying the rent is going to be.
what her rent, the rent that I charge, it's published. Okay, so it's public knowledge what they pay for a certain house in a certain area. Okay, if I agree to rent at that price, let's just say $2,000. Okay, then Section 8 will determine how much of that $2,000 will Charlene pay based on her income and based on her family size. Okay, and so let's say they decide that it's $300. Therefore, every month I'm going to get $1,700 from the housing authority, and then the delta, the difference, is going to be from her, the $300. What Greg is saying is that he prefers tenants whose portion is zero, and therefore the $2,000 comes automatically from the housing authority every month. He doesn't have to worry about collecting anything from Charlene. Okay, and that's how it works.
And how is that $2,000 set up? Is that a market rate?
It's based on published rates, fair market, what they call fair market rents. And again, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, but there are certain areas where they pay higher than market rent. Okay, the one here that I've got here, the rent here there is $5,462. Okay, which is the house next door was rented for $3,800 next door. Okay, and I'm getting $5,400. So, there are ways whereby you can kind of work it, whereby you get higher than market rent once you kind of get into it. It's more interesting. I mean, there's certain neighborhoods, certain zip codes where it's just higher, and certain neighborhood zip codes where it's lower. You just have to kind of understand how they determine the rent, and therefore you buy accordingly.
And we have a property manager that does that. There's a fee that she charges, where she'll do a background check, like a criminal background check. She'll do a credit check. Even though Section 8 is paying, we still want to know what their credit looks like. And I could get you that information. There's a site that you can go to.
Yeah.
Would you recommend if it's like your first or second property, would you recommend getting a property manager or?
And so that's a good question because we have different ideas on that. And so I would.
So it's not that, it's having the right system. It's selecting the Charlene's of this world. Okay, if you can get the Charlene's of this world, believe me, trust me, it doesn't require a lot of time. Okay, because she's taking care of the house, she's pleasant to deal with, she's paying the rent, and she's looking to stay along. It doesn't take a lot of time if you can find the Charlene's of the world. Now, if you don't find her, then it becomes a pain. Okay, then you want to say, I'm done with this thing, I want to give it to somebody else. That's just, so the screening is the key, because if you can find good tenants out there, and there are a lot of good tenants here, if you can find them and you can attract them and you can nurture a good relationship with them, okay, most people are pretty straightforward. She just wants a nice place to live. That's it. There's nothing complicated, okay, and so on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, part of my question I'll answer was, Joseph, you're talking about finding Charlotte in the world. It might be easy for you because
No.
No. What I'm saying, relatively speaking, it might be easier for you because of your experience in real estate. But a lot of us I assume are newbies or close to newbies going out there.
Okay, can I just answer that?
That's
But
fine.
before we get that, for me to find Charlotte in the world, I would need some expertise at like their screening and so forth. Like I can't like run a check. I don't know how to do that. I can't do it whatever it is.
Okay.
So that's where, like when you mentioned management company,
Okay.
I find that to be very good, especially for
Sure.
people who are brand new.
Sure.
We have the cash to buy the place, or we have the good supply.
I understand.
That's nothing, we don't think about management, screening, whatever it may be.
Okay.
Right? So especially in the early stages, I would agree with you that perhaps you can get an management company to do it. But once they get the experience, you can gradually take it.
So it is about getting the experience, but it's also about being in the right network of people that can kind of steer you in the right direction. And so what we can't do is make excuses for us not being successful, or make excuses for us not buying rental properties because we don't know every step of the process. We learn as we go. We seek advice. We join coaching programs. We ask for help. We everything that you need to know is right on the internet. You Google it. And then eventually you will know and you will master it. But along the way, we keep going and we take action. And as a goal, you guys should be buying your first property, maybe by the end of the year, definitely within a year. And Section 8 is a viable option, but we're going to learn each step of the way because we have to, because we want to build wealth. We want to provide good, affordable housing, great shelter, an asset to the community, but then also we don't want to have to work for the rest of our lives. We want to travel to London and England and Accra and where else did you go the other day?
I came from the Caribbean last week. I was there for 3 weeks.
But that didn't happen overnight. So we are not going to make excuses not to be able to buy that first property or that second property. We're going to learn along the way.
My question is for Joe. You said that you usually do more bedrooms, but do you find in this area that it costs a lot for you to go in and add the egress window in the basement to make 2 more bedrooms? And if you do, what would you say on average is the cost to do that right now?
Yeah, I think that if you're starting out, what I do is when I look at a house for the first time, if I get a lead from a wholesaler, I go to a house, okay. And so in my mind, I have an idea what will classify as a legal bedroom. And therefore, when I go to the home, I'm thinking, how do I add extra bedrooms? If I go to the basement and the ceiling height is there, I may see a window where it may be egress, it may not be. And therefore, so I kind of picture in my mind what I need to do to add extra bedrooms. And then it becomes a matter of, based on experience, based on speaking with contractors, I have an idea approximately how much it's going to cost and whether it's worthwhile to add extra bedrooms. Okay, so there's so again, you're going to have to understand to a certain extent what it is that's required from the housing authority, and then a little bit of experience working with a contractor to determine how much it's going to cost. It could vary anywhere from $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 upwards. It just depends on the property.
Gary?
Yeah, my question was, you said you use a tenant placement company. Yeah, do they? Because I'm like Dr. Joe. I have a tenant screening company that I use. So does the tenant placement company, do they do the screening, or do they give you like names? And once you get those names, do you do screening?
Yeah, they'll screen for you.
Screen for you.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are using like software, like entry portfolio,
Yeah. And so if you're going to build a portfolio of properties, if you're going to do that, then yeah, you have to, Yardi, Buildium are good softwares to use. I wouldn't invest in them only if you're going to do like a big portfolio of property and you're going to manage yourself. But yeah, I would use that if you're going to self-manage. Yeah.
Please, could you explain item 10 on 11 benefits of renting section 8? And second question is, how do you get reliable contractors?
So the second question was reliable contractors. It's just building the relationships, getting referrals. What would you suggest?
Yeah, go to a meeting like this, speak to other investors who are in the same kind of business. They probably are using contractors. And who would they recommend? Are they, going to the Home Depot, speak to the Pro Desk, go to forums, there's bigger pockets of forums, and you can put a post, I'm looking for a contractor, can anyone make any recommendations? Word of mouth. I have great contractors. I'm more than happy to share them if anybody's interested. It's all about relationships and networking. There are a lot of good contractors out there. There's a lot of bad ones, but there's some good ones out there. And again, life's too short to have bad tenants. Life's too short to have bad contractors. Life's too short. I mean, we have to think of better ways. And I think that if you speak to experienced people, network with other people, you can leverage on their knowledge and their wisdom such that you don't make unnecessary mistakes.
Second one in that side, item 10 on the 11 benefits of renting. Yes.
What's the question?
Business support scholarship, item 10.
What's this?
on the living benefits of renting.
Oh, okay. Because, which number are you referring to?
Number 10.
10, business support scholarships.
Why are you looking at me, Joseph?
I didn't create this either. Scholarships, what's it called? As I said, why I read to Section 8 is, the biggest thing is less turnover, which is number 4, but also business support scholarship. What is that?
Do you give scholarship?
What?
Do you give scholarship?
Do I give scholarships? Okay, I know that a couple of my tenants, have earned scholarships just by, being in educational, and things like that. So doing well, going to, sort of studying and things like that. I'm not too sure if that's what's referred to.
I had one of my assistants do this like an outset.
That's an excuse. It's called-
There you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think what I do, I love what I do. Okay, because when you hear stories of how you've made a difference in people's lives, I mean, it's touching. It's rewarding. It's knowing that it's not just about me. Yeah, at the end of the day, we all want to make money. But I mean, I was in the Caribbean. I just came back last week. Okay, while I was there. One of my wife's aunts passed away. Okay, so I went to a funeral and a celebration of life, and it was just this lady. She was 90-something years old, and she lived. People celebrated her life and the difference that she was able to make. She didn't have a lot of houses. She didn't have a lot of money, but she just focused on certain things, and people celebrated her. And it got to me is, what difference are we making to other people? I mean, it's a legitimate question, I think. And I think that through something like this, through what we're talking about here, yes, you can make money, but also you can make a huge impact on other people. And you can make a difference. You can. I don't know if that's answered the question, but you can make a difference to yourself, the community, other people. That's number 11. Okay.
Well, I'll go. Let me go through all these in a second. Go ahead.
Do I?
Do either of you allow your tenants to have pets?
You want to answer?
I do.
I depend. It depends. It depends on when I do a home visit. So when I do a home visit, I get a good idea of whether this person can keep pets or not, and whether the pets causing damage or not, and so on. So it depends. It's not just a blanket yes, because some people can maintain pets, some people can't, and pets can destroy a house if you're not careful. I don't want my house destroyed, so it's a sort of a caveat. It depends on the home visit.
As far as like, fixtures in your apartments, because you have all that like uniform, like the same location of it,
So as far as the finishes, for me personally, all of mine are the same. Yeah. And so I want to have a good quality product like Joseph. Primarily because I don't want to have to come in years later and have to put in new faucets, new doorknobs, new trim, that kind of thing. On a tenant turnover, really all I really want to do is just paint. Now, what we try to do is we reduce the turnover. That's the worst thing that you could have when we're renting out to tenants is turnover. that kills your profit. And so we do everything we can to keep them in there. I bought a house, I think it was summer before last, that I helped one of my agents buy back in the late 90s. So I helped her buy. It was in Sea Pleasant. The tenant, she had the same Section 8 tenant there the whole time, 20 years, and she didn't change anything. And she sent her daughter to college on that house, and she just kept up, she just kept up with everything. And the tenant paid off that whole house for her. And then, then she sold it to me. Now I'm renting that property out. I had to totally renovate the house. But that's what a property can do. But if you put in quality products, then you don't have to go back 5 years later, 10 years later, or even 20 years later to change anything. So put good products, good quality products into your property to reduce down the line the money that you're going to have to put in. Let me go over these questions as we start to wrap up. Is the money different from a market rate tenant than Section 8? And so in some cases it is. Some cases, like Joseph said, you can get more money from Section 8. And then,
Thank you.
T, can you handle that? All right. So we just need to hurry up. Is that it? And so you guys know the money that we get in from Section 8 is direct deposited into your account, right? Yard work, I have my tenants do the yard work. Let's see. We talked about inspections. The Section 8 provided tenants, they do. They have the tenants there. You can give them your property and they'll market your property for you. The level of renovation, we've kind of already talked about that. You do want to keep up with the maintenance. It just behooves you. It's going to save you a lot of money down the line. Huh? These are the questions that were asked before we got started. Now on the handout, let's see. Have we answered all these questions? I think we have. Let's turn over. Huh? All right, how do you handle rent increases? Because traditionally the rents can go up 5% a year, even with Section 8. Now, when they go up, Section 8 has to qualify the tenants all over again to make sure that they qualify for that. How do you handle that, Joseph?
Yeah, so there are two ways that rent increases are done. In some jurisdictions, it's automatic, okay, whereby they just increase the rents every time it's time for a renewal, okay? Other jurisdictions, you have to request a rent increase, okay? So again, it depends on which jurisdiction you're in. It could be automatic where you don't do anything. They just set the rate and they just increase it, okay? And the other way is you have to submit a rent increase request. And then they have certain things by when you can submit the request. There's a window. It could be 60 days before what they call a recertification. It could be 90 days. Again, each jurisdiction varies. So you have to make sure that you submit your rent increase request during that window. If you miss that window, they may not approve it, okay? So if the rent increase request amount is within their guidelines, i.e. within what they call fair market rent, there's a pretty good chance they'll approve it. If it's outside of that, they may sort of, I wouldn't say deny it, but they'll just say, we can't accept this amount, we'll approve this amount. Okay, so some kind of negotiations, and then it goes from there.
I do see a lot of landlords not increasing the rent for 5-10 years. And so you stay on top of that. The rents can increase.
Yeah.
So you've got to stay on top of that.
It's hard to not increase the rent for 10 years and then try to get a huge increase. Okay, that's tougher. So it's better just to keep on increasing your rents.
All right, you guys, any other questions? Anything that we didn't cover? Go ahead,
I wanted to
Charlene.
know how to.
Charlene, does anybody have a house, by the way, for Charlene to move into? She has a voucher. Is it a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom voucher?
Or,
She's looking for a 4-bedroom. Did you renovate anything recently?
Are you serious?
Where at?
His eyes lit up.
I'm in a 4-bedroom house, and it's available right now.
Charlene? You might want to call your caseworker.
It's in Columbia Heights, Northwest, just around the corner from Howard University. The last tenant, she was there for 6 years. And this is another thing about vouchers, is that it's a 4-bedroom house. And so she had a 4-bedroom voucher, but her daughter and the daughter's son left. So because of that, her number of people in the house went down. So they downgraded her voucher from a 4 to a 2.
Wow.
And therefore she no longer qualified to be in my home. So she was there. She was there for 6 years, and so it's now the house is just ready. So if anyone,
So Charlene, you want to get the address?
not right now. But I wanted to know, how does the typical, Section 8 family go? Is it a single woman with kids, or is it a husband and wife, or how does the Section 8, tenants look?
typically it's families, okay, and most of the times I tend to find female-headed households. There are some with dual husband and wife. But I think the majority are single parents with children. And the size of the voucher you get depends on the number of people in the household. So if there are 1, you get a certain value. If you have 2, you get more, 3, 4, 5, etc. So depending on how many people in the house will determine. Also, each jurisdiction determines how they assign the vouchers, the size, okay? So Prince George's County may be different than Washington, D.C., okay? And so you have to kind of understand it from there.
Well, I'm sorry. If someone on the live, they are asking, does Joe have a mentorship program?
Did Joe have an answer? Yeah, if you want to learn more about what I do, I'll be more than happy to. Again, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'd be more than happy to work with people if they want. I have a free workbook, okay? If you want more about Section 8, I've got a card over there. You can download it. There's a bit more information about Section 8. It's free, so not to.
Yes.
But yeah, I'd be more than happy. I want to encourage more people to do this because it's a good business and so on.
Just a quick question. Pertains to like a person who, because the family member left and they downgraded the voucher, what if that person wanted to pay the difference? Section 8 said no.
Section 8 finds out they'll pick them up.
Yeah, they can't afford it anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
The question I had about you getting paid what was published is because I've heard Prince George's County that say 3 bedrooms paying $2,100, and then the person goes and puts, this voucher holder, and they count on the papers until they decide that was not going to be 2,100, it's going to be 1960. And so what I'm saying is, I know DC, what it says is what they pay, but are there situations where there's a discrepancy in what they say and what they
There is, unfortunately, in PG County, and I'm not sure why, but there definitely is. And generally, to be honest with you, what's published is higher than what they actually pay in PG County.
I actually have an answer to that. So there's 2, it's weird. So on PG's website, there's 2 lists. So let's say you go on Google and say PG County Section 8 rental homes. What comes up immediately is going to be that higher number that you're talking about.
yes.
There's another list that's like embedded deep into the website that you wouldn't be able to find quickly that has the actual amounts. Because that's happened to me multiple times. I'm like, well, it says 2,400. So again, speaking to the relationship at the housing authority, I've got a lady that I can call and talk to that gave me the actual link that has those numbers that they use. So if anybody wants to stop past, I can share that, because that was the issue that I had, like, $200 can make a difference in a day.
And it will still vary based on if the utilities are included or not, because this certificate may say one thing and it may include a certain amount for utilities, and that may bring it up or bring it down if utilities is not included. So that'll change the price also.
So let's ask that one last question, and then we'll be up here if you guys have questions. We've got some food in the back. So Section 8 pays two separate prices. One if the landlord is going to pay the utilities, and what if they don't? What's your opinion on that, Joseph?
I never pay utilities. I don't want the tenant to have a side hustle washing cars, and I'm paying the water bill. And so if someone's paying their utilities, they tend to conserve it better. So if they're not paying it, they don't care. They'll jack up the thermostat and open the windows, and it's not their problem. So I never pay utilities. That's just a personal preference. But I have houses. Now, if you're in an apartment building, that may be different. But I try to veer more towards tenant pays utilities.
All right, did you guys find this useful?
Yes.
Are you guys ready to buy buy and hold and rent it out Section 8? Huh?
I don't know if you and Joe talked about this, but one of the best features about having multiple rentals is you're able to use the depreciation against the asset, so you can make the cash flow you make every month essentially tax-free by offsetting the income versus the depreciation of the assets. So you can make all the rent and not have to pay taxes legally.
Yeah, there are good tax benefits associated with real estate, with rentals, as you was just saying. Yeah, you can use that for the scholarship. How about that? That's another 10.
All right, you guys are free to, both of us will be up here if you guys want Subway sandwich cookies.
I've got business cards there. There's a card there.
Hey, hold up for a second. Hold up. I want Keith to speak real quick. We do have a coaching program that there's a flyer in your handout. You want to speak to it real quick?
Yeah,
Keith?
Platinum Coaching. You can get in touch with me, set up a free appointment just to discuss it. Flipping, buy and hold, financing, creatively financing. We're going to hold your hand every step of the way, but I'll give you a free 45-minute strategy call. There are things that you could be doing before the end of the year to really set the stage for 2023. So I have some cards. I put my card as well.
Also, there's a yellow and blue form. If you guys could fill those out and send them up to us, that would be helpful.
Where's your card?
They're on this table.
What's up?
Oh, you put it over here. Oh, put it over here. Put it over here.
Oh, yeah, the table.
I had that one now. The other ones were answered. I got one.
Oh, okay. We'll email everybody.
Information. Yeah, I'll find one of the best things. So essentially,
let me take a look at it. I don't think I can make it.
Cash buy? Yeah.
So what was that statement you made about?
You be doing it big time.
How long can you actually? If you're
Different
running
ways.
property for 30 years, how do you
You can depreciate it 30 years, you can depreciate 7.5 years. Or there's different programs where you can depreciate in 5 or 10 years.
After you depreciate 5 years, after 5 years, you can't do
So if you're making a lot of money
money now, and you appreciate it. Some people appreciate it over the 30 years. But I appreciate all mine now. Like I didn't run on property. I wanted to appreciate half of them now. And half of them.
Oh, you screwed it up.
Yeah, actually, I'd rather have a conversation with you and bring you on the show. I'm having no longer a my goal is to have him as a reoccurring. Yeah, exactly. And so, if you have the time, are you on IG? Social media. Well, I just use it, like you said, LLC.
Text me your information. That's
I'll do that right now. Message.
Get us going. Get the fire on this. Just a little bit. So what
I would like to talk about that piece right there and just put it out there on social media. So Highway, I mentioned and Greg.
And if we can follow up with a call.
Yeah, definitely follow it. And you don't have a conversation, talk.
You're not an agent.
I am.
You're an agent.
Okay, great.
What area do you buy in?
I'm buying one in Louis.
Oh, okay.
Like I was lost.